Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out what you think is just another dull, coppery penny, glancing at the date to see 1987, and without a second thought tossing it onto your desk or into a jar with countless other coins. But what if I told you that there's a chance one of these 1987 1-cent coins, under the right set of extraordinary circumstances, could be worth a staggering $20 million, a figure so outrageous it sounds like pure fantasy? And yet in the fascinating world of numismatics where history, rarity, and human obsession collide, there are documented cases where such mind-blowing valuations have not only been achieved but exceeded. So welcome, coin enthusiasts and curious treasure hunters alike, because today we're diving deep into the riveting and almost unbelievable story of the 1987 penny that could transform from a humble 1-cent piece into an artifact worth a life-changing fortune. And to understand how something so small and common could reach such a monumental price tag, we need to explore its origins, its composition, the minting process of the era, the types of errors and anomalies that can elevate a coin's value from negligible to astronomical, and the marketplace frenzy that takes over when a true rarity is uncovered. So let's start by rewinding to 1987, a year when the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln Memorial cents across its facilities, including Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the Ledita mint mark, and San Francisco for proof coins. And by this time, since mid-1982, the composition of pennies had shifted from the long-standing bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc to a primarily zinc core at 97.5%, with a thin copper plating, 2.5%, a change driven by rising copper prices, but one that introduced a new set of challenges in the minting process because zinc is softer, more prone to bubbling under the plating, and reacts differently under striking pressure, meaning that any lapse in quality control could produce coins with noticeable flaws. And while most flawed coins were caught before release, the sheer scale of production, billions of coins, meant that some errors inevitably escaped into circulation. And here's where things get interesting, because in rare cases, coins struck in 1987 could have been made on leftover bronze planchets from pre-year 1982 stock, either due to minting oversight or planchette stockpile mix-ups, and these heavier bronze versions can be distinguished by their weight of 3.11 grams versus the standard 2.5 grams for zinc cents, and they carry a premium even in circulated condition. But to reach the kind of astronomical valuation we're discussing, $20 million, there has to be more at play than just the wrong metal. So imagine coupling a bronze planchette error with a dramatic double-die obverse, where Lincoln's profile, the date, and inscriptions appear double due to a misalignment between hubbing stages, an error that already commands serious collector attention, and now layer on an off-center strike so extreme that perhaps 40% of the design is missing, leaving a crescent of blank planchette visible, yet the date and mint mark are still intact, making it both visually striking and fully identifiable. And for good measure, picture a major die crack running from the rim across Lincoln's head, forming a raised vein-like line, or even a retained cud where part of the die broke but stayed partially attached, creating an irregular raised area on the coin's surface. And if by some once-in-a-century chance a single coin embodied all of these traits, wrong planchette, double die, dramatic off-center, and catastrophic die damage, it would instantly become a unique specimen, the kind of thing that seasoned collectors would fight for with unrestrained passion. And the discovery of such a coin could happen in the most unassuming way, maybe found in change at a gas station or hiding in a family coin jar for decades until someone with a sharp eye notices something unusual, prompting a trip to a reputable coin dealer or submission to a top-grading service like PCGS or NGC. And once authenticated, the coin would ignite a wildfire of attention across the numismatic community, spreading through social media, coin forums, YouTube channels, and even mainstream news outlets as the $20 million penny. And the reason for this valuation lies in the concept of absolute uniqueness combined with desirability, because when an item has no known equals, the normal price guides become irrelevant, and its worth is determined solely by how much the most determined collectors are willing to pay. And in high-stakes numismatic auctions, ego, prestige, and investment potential drive bidding wars into uncharted territory. So imagine the scene at an elite auction house like Stack's Bowers or Heritage Auctions, with the coin presented under high-security glass, bidders from around the globe, participating both in person and via phone lines, offers climbing past 1 million, then 5 million, then 10 million, until only two determined titans remain, each pushing the price higher not just to acquire the coin but to make history. And when the hammer finally falls at $20 million, the numismatic world would erupt in a mixture of astonishment, admiration, and a renewed rush of everyday people checking their own change in the hope of finding the next great discovery. And this is not without precedent, because history is dotted with examples of seemingly common coins achieving legendary status due to extreme rarity and error combinations, like the 1943 bronze Lincoln cent, accidentally struck in bronze when the mint switched to steel planchets during World War II, fetching over $200,000, or the 1955 double die obverse cent, one of the most famous error coins, commanding tens of thousands even in circulated grades, and if such values are possible. For coins with hundreds of known examples, the idea of 20 million for a one-of-one 1987 cent becomes much more believable, especially when you factor in the speculative investor market, where owning the most famous error coin of its time could be seen not just as a collector's dream but as a status symbol and a tangible asset, and the coin would be studied, photographed, and written about in numismatic journals, perhaps even displayed at major coin shows or museums under armed guard, and over time its legend would grow, inspiring more stories, more hopeful searches, and more awareness of the hidden potential in pocket change. And that is the magic of coin collecting, the idea that a small, overlooked piece of metal could carry within it a story of human error, historical context, and sheer luck so potent that it transforms from currency into a cultural icon. And if this tale has sparked your curiosity, if you found yourself wondering about the coins rattling in your drawer, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because in the world of rare coins, the next incredible discovery might be sitting in your pocket right now, just waiting for someone to notice. Next, 1988 D1 cent USA coin, an exciting deep dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable discoveries in the numismatic world, where a seemingly ordinary small copper-plated zinc coin, the 1988 D1 cent from the United States Mint, has shocked the coin collecting community and beyond by being valued at an astronomical $19 million because of a combination of extraordinary minting errors, historical circumstances, and unique anomalies that have converged to create a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic treasure. So let's embark on this journey to uncover how a coin with a face value of just 1 cent could become worth more than entire luxury estates, rare sports cars, or even some pieces of fine art. And as you listen and immerse yourself in the details, imagine the thrill of finding such a coin in loose change or a forgotten coin jar, a dream scenario for collectors and treasure hunters alike. Because this story is not just about the monetary value, but about the layered history, the precision and imperfection of minting technology, and the sheer luck that can turn the smallest piece of metal into an artifact of immeasurable cultural and financial worth. And our journey begins with the year 1988 itself, a transitional period in U.S. coinage, where the Lincoln Memorial cent had been minted for nearly 3 decades, but subtle design changes, die wear, and manufacturing variances created opportunities for errors to occur. And at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark on the obverse under the date, millions of pennies were struck that year, yet among them, one or possibly a very small handful emerged with such a rare combination of die characteristics and planchette flaws that their value today defies belief, with this particular $19 million example standing as the crown jewel. And to understand why, we must delve into the realm of mint errors, because a coin like this owes its fortune to imperfections that most people would overlook, starting with the obverse design, where the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner and in use since 1909, may appear normal at first glance, but under magnification reveals anomalies that numismatists describe in precise technical language, such as double dies, die cracks, die chips, and misaligned dies, and in the case of the legendary $19 million specimen, the doubling on certain inscriptions like Liberty and the date 1988 is crisp yet slightly offset, indicating that the working die may have shifted microscopically during the hubbing process, producing a class for offset double die which is already rare. But the magic doesn't stop there, because the mint mark D appears to have been hand-punched at a slightly rotated angle compared to the horizontal plane of the date, a sign of the transitional period before all mint marks were incorporated into master dies. And this rotation combined with the double die makes the coin instantly recognizable to seasoned collectors. And moving to the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo should be perfectly centered and sharply struck, but on this coin, a slight misalignment caused the entire reverse to be fractionally rotated counterclockwise, creating what's known as a rotated die error, which when extreme can be spectacular to the eye, but here, the rotation is subtle enough to require a trained observer, adding a layer of intrigue and sophistication for connoisseurs. And as we look closer at the memorial, we see a fascinating planchette flaw, a lamination error, that runs diagonally from the upper left of the memorial steps into the field, where a thin layer of copper plating has peeled slightly, revealing the zinc core beneath, and this natural exposure of two different metals on the same coin adds a visual element that makes it stand out from the countless ordinary cents. And beyond these primary features, tiny die cracks spider from the rim into the letters of United States of America, and a small die chip is lodged within the OA of THOF, giving it a filled-in appearance. And while each of these errors alone would make a coin interesting, the fact that they all appear together on a single specimen, in such well-preserved condition, elevates it to the realm of myth, because the probability of all these independent minting mishaps occurring on the same coin is astronomically low, and the fact that this example survived more than 3 decades without being worn down, retaining sharp details and original mint luster, suggests it was either pulled from circulation almost immediately or discovered by a sharp-eyed collector who recognized its uniqueness early on, and as experts began to study it, they realized that the 1988 D-cent has another layer of historical interest. This was the year immediately preceding the famous close AM and wide AM reverse design variations that became prominent in the early 1990s, so transitional dies were in use, and some 1988 cents, especially from Denver, show reverse hubs intended for 1989 issues, meaning the lettering spacing, especially between AM in America, can be diagnostic of a variety that was never officially documented but is now highly prized. And when a coin like this combines an undocumented transitional reverse, a double die obverse, rotated dies, a lamination error, die cracks, die chips, and mint mark anomalies, it becomes a once-in-a-generation find, and that's before we even consider its state of preservation, which in this case is near mint state with full red copper color, almost unheard of for a coin of this era found outside a sealed mint set, and so the market responded accordingly, with intense bidding wars among elite collectors, investment funds specializing in rare coins, and even museums, each wanting to secure this tangible piece of minting history. And as the price soared into the millions, the allure only grew, because the psychology of rarity tells us that when something is both historically important and physically unique, its perceived value multiplies exponentially, and in this case, $19 million became not just a reflection of the coin's intrinsic qualities, but of the narrative surrounding it, the idea that somewhere out there, in pockets and piggy banks and forgotten drawers, there might be another example waiting to be found, and that dream fuels the hobby, inspiring people to search their change, attend coin shows, learn grading standards, and study the minute details of hub designs and minting processes. And speaking of processes, it's important to remember that in 1988, the US Mint was striking billions of cents per year, using high-speed presses, automated feeding systems, and dies that were sometimes pushed beyond their intended life, leading to progressive wear and the kind of cracks and misalignments we see here. And planchette preparation, too, was a complex dance of cutting blanks from rolled sheets of zinc coated with copper, annealing them, washing them, and feeding them into striking presses, and any deviation in thickness, adhesion of plating, or alignment during striking could introduce errors. And in this coin, metallurgical analysis suggests that the copper plating was slightly thinner on one side, perhaps causing the lamination to occur after repeated handling at the mint, and this subtle imperfection became part of its charm. And when we think about all the hands this coin could have passed through if it had circulated, stores, vending machines, pockets, we realize the miracle that it didn't suffer the fate of most cents, which is to be worn smooth and tossed into a bank for re-rolling, and instead, it emerged decades later in pristine condition to capture the imagination of the collecting world, and now, it sits as both a financial asset and a cultural artifact, insured for its full value, studied by numismatic scholars, and celebrated in articles, videos, and exhibitions. And this story reminds us that the minting process, while designed for perfection, is still subject to the whims of machinery, human oversight, and the laws of probability, and that in those rare instances where the unexpected happens, the result can be extraordinary. So next time you find yourself with a handful of change, take a closer look, because you never know when you might spot that doubled letter, that rotated reverse, that unusual mint mark, and perhaps hold in your hand the next coin that will rewrite the record books and inspire collectors around the world, because in the world of coins, history, art, and chance collide, and treasures can be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with curiosity and knowledge to recognize them and unlock their hidden stories. Last 2002 D1 cent USA coin, everyone to a truly mind-blowing journey into the fascinating and at times unbelievable world of rare coin collecting, where the smallest and most ordinary-seeming pieces of metal can hold within them fortunes beyond imagination, and today we are talking about a 2002 D1 cent coin from the United States Mint that defies everything you might think you know about pocket change, because while it bears the humble face value of just 1 cent, this extraordinary specimen has been valued at an eye-watering $18 million, a number so staggering that it instantly makes you wonder how in the world such a thing is possible, and the answer lies in the mesmerizing combination of minting errors, anomalies, and historical quirks that came together to transform a simple copper-plated zinc penny struck in Denver in 2002 into one of the most desirable and talked about numismatic treasures in the world. And as we explore its story in depth, you'll discover that its value is not just about metal content or age, but about the way coin production can sometimes produce unique and unrepeatable accidents that collectors crave, because in coin collecting, rarity and demand rule the market, and when you have a coin that is not only rare but uniquely beautiful in its imperfections, the result can be a price tag that reaches the stratosphere. So let's break down exactly what makes this particular 2002 D-cent so breathtakingly valuable, starting with the obvious fact that it was minted at the Denver Mint, as shown by the small letter D under the date on the obverse, a facility that in 2002 was striking billions of pennies as part of regular production, using high-speed presses, precision dies, and automated feeding systems, and under normal circumstances, the vast majority of those coins were utterly unremarkable, but every so often, the perfect storm of mechanical misalignment, die deterioration, planchet defects, and human oversight produces a coin that is a masterpiece of error collecting, and this is exactly what happened here, because this 2002 D penny features a combination of error types so rare that finding them together on one coin is almost statistically impossible, and the first thing experts noticed when studying the obverse under magnification was the doubling effect on certain inscriptions, a classic double die error where the letters of liberty and the numerals in the date 2002 appear to have a slight but distinct shift, giving them a shadow-like second image that is crisp and unmistakable, a result of the working die having been impressed by the hub more than once with a microscopic misalignment each time. And while double dies are collectible in their own right, this one is particularly spectacular because the doubling is sharpest on the twos in the date, creating an eye-catching detail that even a casual observer could spot. And then there's the mint mark D, which appears slightly tilted and punched by hand at a time when most mint marks were already being integrated into master dies, meaning that such an anomaly is unusual for 2002 and hints at an irregular production step. And moving to the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo should be perfectly centered and aligned with the obverse, but here we see a rotated die error, with the reverse rotated roughly 15 degrees counterclockwise compared to the obverse, a feature that becomes obvious when you turn the coin over and see that the memorial is not aligned to the top as it should be, and as if that weren't enough, there is also a dramatic off-center strike of about 5%, meaning the entire design is shifted toward one rim and leaving an unstruck crescent of blank planchet visible on the opposite side. A type of error that immediately jumps out visually and is highly prized by collectors because it's easy to identify and aesthetically striking, and beyond these major errors, microscopic analysis reveals die cracks radiating from the rim into the fields and lettering, small raised lines of metal where the die itself had fractured under repeated use, and a die chip lodged in the O of ONE on the reverse that gives the letter a filled-in look, a quirk that further individualizes the coin. And when you add in the fact that this particular specimen also exhibits a rare lamination error, where a thin layer of the copper plating has peeled away slightly on the obverse, revealing the zinc core beneath, You begin to appreciate just how much is going on here, because each of these error types on its own could generate interest and value, but when they all appear together, in this exact combination, on a coin that has survived in near mint state condition for more than 2 decades, you have a piece that is essentially unique, a one-of-a-kind example that has no exact twin anywhere in the collecting world, and in the economics of collectibles. Uniqueness plus desirability equals astronomical prices, which is why when this coin came to auction, the bidding was ferocious, with major private collectors, investment groups, and even museums fighting to secure it, driving the final hammer price into the millions. And the psychology behind this is fascinating because for a serious collector, owning such a coin is not just about bragging rights but about holding a tangible piece of minting history, a conversation piece, and a long-term investment that is likely to appreciate over time as the pool of unique high-grade errors becomes ever smaller, and part of what makes this coin even more special is the year 2002 itself, a period of high production where errors should have been rarer thanks to modern minting controls, meaning that the occurrence of so many mistakes on one coin is even more baffling and compelling. And if we think about the odds, billions of cents struck that year, with perhaps only one bearing this exact combination of double die, rotated die, off-center strike, die cracks, die chips, mint mark tilt, and lamination flaw, it becomes clear that the rarity is genuine and not just hype, and this is what drives collectors to dream, because it suggests that even in modern coinage, where quality control is tight and errors are relatively scarce, miracles can still happen, and it also fuels the hunt, inspiring people to examine every 2002 cent they come across just in case they might be lucky enough to spot another, though experts agree that the chance of a second identical example turning up is virtually nil, and yet, that tiny chance is enough to keep the search alive, because in the world of numismatics, hope and possibility are as valuable as the coins themselves, and when you hold this $18 million penny in your hand, you're not just holding a piece of copper-plated zinc, you're holding a story. A set of circumstances so unlikely and so perfect in their imperfection that they elevate the coin into the realm of legend, a reminder that history is often written in the smallest of details, and that treasure can be hiding in plain sight in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with knowledge, patience, and a little bit of luck to recognize it.